Cannabis has been a part of human culture for thousands of years, known for its use in medicine, recreation, and industry. In recent decades, the plant has gained increased attention due to its potential therapeutic benefits, as well as the ongoing debates surrounding its legalization. However, despite its long history and growing popularity, cannabis remains a complex substance, with effects that can vary significantly depending on how it is used, the specific compounds it contains, and the individual consuming it. At the heart of cannabis are two key components: tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, and cannabidiol, CBD. These cannabinoids interact with the body's endocannabinoid system, producing a range of physical and psychological effects. While cannabis can offer relief for certain medical conditions, its recreational use also comes with potential risks, such as dependency and mental health issues, especially when used excessively or at a young age. This script aims to provide a comprehensive overview of cannabis, exploring its components, how it affects the brain and body, and the advantages and disadvantages of its use. Whether you are curious about its medicinal properties, concerned about its potential risks, or simply seeking a better understanding of this widely used substance, this guide will help clarify the complex landscape of cannabis use. Cannabis, commonly referred to as marijuana, is a plant that has been used for thousands of years for medicinal, recreational, and industrial purposes. The cannabis plant produces chemical compounds known as cannabinoids, which interact with receptors in the human body to produce various effects. The most well-known cannabinoids are tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, and cannabidiol, CBD. THC is the psychoactive compound responsible for the high that many people associate with cannabis use, while CBD is non-psychoactive and has been studied for its potential therapeutic effects. Cannabis plants come in several varieties, with the most commonly known being Cannabis sativa, Cannabis indica, and Cannabis ruderalis. Each variety contains different ratios of cannabinoids, and these ratios can influence the effects of cannabis on the body. While cannabis is most often consumed through smoking, it can also be ingested in edible forms, oils, and tinctures. In recent years, cannabis has been the subject of increased research, particularly regarding its medicinal properties. Some studies suggest that cannabis may have potential benefits for certain medical conditions, such as chronic pain, epilepsy, anxiety, and nausea, though much of the research is still in its early stages. Legal regulations around cannabis use vary worldwide, and in many places its medicinal use is permitted under controlled conditions, while recreational use is either legal or decriminalized in a select few countries or regions. Understanding the basic components of cannabis, primarily THC and CBD, is key to comprehending its effects on the human body. In the next sections, we will explore how these cannabinoids interact with the body and the potential benefits and risks associated with their use. The effects of cannabis on the body are primarily mediated by cannabinoids, which interact with a complex system in the human body, known as the endocannabinoid system, ECS. The ECS plays a crucial role in regulating various physiological processes, including mood, appetite, pain sensation, and memory. It consists of receptors, endocannabinoids, naturally occurring chemicals in the body, and enzymes. The two main receptors in the ECS are CB1 and CB2 receptors. When cannabis is consumed, cannabinoids like THC bind to these receptors, particularly the CB1 receptors, which are concentrated in the brain and central nervous system. This interaction produces the psychoactive effects that many people experience when using cannabis. THC is known to activate CB1 receptors, which can lead to alterations in perception, mood, and cognition, often described as a high. These effects can vary depending on factors such as the dose, the strain of cannabis, and the individual's tolerance. CBD, on the other hand, interacts with the ECS differently. While it does not bind directly to CB1 or CB2 receptors, it is thought to influence the ECS by increasing the availability of the body's own endocannabinoids, thereby enhancing their natural effects. CBD has been shown to have potential therapeutic benefits, including anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and neuroprotective properties. It may help reduce anxiety, alleviate pain, and even manage certain seizure disorders. Apart from interacting with the ECS, cannabinoids also affect other systems in the body. For instance, THC can cause an increase in heart rate, which can be noticeable in some users, while CBD is not associated with this effect. Additionally, cannabinoids can impact the release of neurotransmitters in the brain, such as dopamine and serotonin, which play key roles in regulating mood, stress, and pleasure. While many of these effects are temporary and subside once the cannabinoids are metabolized by the body, the long-term impact of cannabis on brain function and body systems is still being studied. Some research suggests that chronic cannabis use may lead to alterations in brain structure and function, especially if use begins at a young age. The medicinal use of cannabis has gained significant attention over the past few decades due to its potential therapeutic properties. While research is still ongoing, several advantages of cannabis use, particularly for medicinal purposes, have been identified. One of the most well-documented benefits of cannabis is its ability to relieve chronic pain. THC and CBD have been found to have analgesic, pain-relieving properties, making cannabis a potential alternative for individuals suffering from conditions like arthritis, multiple sclerosis, or fibromyalgia. In fact, cannabis has been shown to be effective in reducing pain and inflammation associated with these conditions, sometimes providing relief when other treatments have failed. Cannabis is also commonly used to alleviate nausea and vomiting, particularly in patients undergoing chemotherapy. THC, in particular, has been found to be effective in reducing chemotherapy-induced nausea, and it is sometimes prescribed in medicinal forms for this purpose. This benefit has made cannabis a valuable tool for cancer patients undergoing treatment. In addition to its pain-relieving and anti-nausea properties, cannabis has shown promise in managing certain neurological conditions. For instance, CBD has been studied for its anticonvulsant properties and is currently used in the treatment of epilepsy, particularly for individuals who have not responded to traditional medications. Research has also suggested that cannabis may have neuroprotective effects, which could make it beneficial for treating conditions like Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and Huntington's disease. Another advantage of cannabis is its potential to reduce anxiety and stress. While THC can sometimes induce anxiety in certain individuals, CBD has been found to have calming effects and may help reduce anxiety, especially in those with generalized anxiety disorder or social anxiety. Some people use cannabis to help manage their stress and improve their mood, and there is growing evidence that CBD, in particular, may have therapeutic potential in this area. Finally, cannabis is also being explored for its potential in promoting sleep. THC has been reported to help with sleep onset, while CBD may improve sleep quality and reduce disruptions during the night. This has led some people to use cannabis as a natural sleep aid, particularly those with conditions that interfere with restful sleep, such as insomnia or post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Despite the potential benefits, cannabis use is not without its disadvantages. One of the primary concerns with cannabis use, particularly for recreational users, is its psychoactive effects. The high associated with THC can impair judgment, coordination, and reaction times, which can be dangerous in certain situations, such as when operating a vehicle or machinery. This impairment can lead to accidents and injuries, and it is a significant public health concern in areas where cannabis is legal. Long-term cannabis use, especially when initiated at a young age, may also have negative effects on cognitive function. Some studies suggest that chronic cannabis use can lead to impairments in memory, learning, and attention. These cognitive effects may be particularly pronounced in adolescents, whose brains are still developing. Regular cannabis use during this critical period may have long-lasting impacts on brain structure and function, which could affect academic performance and other aspects of cognitive development. Another disadvantage of cannabis use is the potential for dependence or addiction. While cannabis is often considered less addictive than other substances, research shows that some individuals may develop a tolerance to the effects of THC, requiring higher doses to achieve the same results. This can lead to a cycle of increased consumption and, in some cases, dependence. Cannabis use disorder is a recognized condition, and individuals who experience withdrawal symptoms, such as irritability, sleep disturbances, and cravings, may find it difficult to quit without professional help. Cannabis use can also have negative effects on mental health, especially in individuals predisposed to certain psychiatric conditions. There is evidence that frequent cannabis use, particularly in high doses, may increase the risk of developing anxiety, paranoia, or psychosis, especially in those with a family history of schizophrenia or other mental health disorders. For some individuals, cannabis use may exacerbate existing mental health conditions, making it important to approach cannabis use with caution, particularly for those with a history of psychiatric issues. The relationship between cannabis and mental health is complex and multifaceted. As mentioned earlier, cannabis can have both therapeutic and adverse effects on the mind, depending on the individual, the dose, and the type of cannabis consumed. While some individuals report feeling relaxed, happy, or euphoric when using cannabis, others may experience anxiety, paranoia, or confusion. The impact of cannabis on mental health can vary depending on the cannabinoid content. THC is the primary psychoactive compound in cannabis, and its effects on the brain can sometimes result in negative mental health outcomes. For instance, high doses of THC can trigger symptoms of anxiety or panic attacks, especially in individuals who are not accustomed to its effects. In some cases, THC may exacerbate pre-existing conditions such as depression or anxiety disorders. On the other hand, CBD, the non-psychoactive cannabinoid, has been shown to have potential therapeutic effects for mental health conditions. CBD is often cited for its anxiolytic, anxiety-reducing properties, and studies suggest that it may help alleviate symptoms of social anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Unlike THC, CBD does not induce a high or cause cognitive impairment, which makes it a potential treatment option for individuals who want to avoid the psychoactive effects of cannabis. Research also suggests that the effects of cannabis on mental health may depend on the age at which an individual begins using it. Adolescents and young adults whose brains are still developing may be more vulnerable to the negative mental health effects of cannabis use. Studies have shown that early and frequent cannabis use is associated with an increased risk of developing mental health conditions, such as depression, anxiety, and psychosis. In contrast, some studies suggest that cannabis may have therapeutic potential for individuals with certain mental health conditions, particularly those who have not responded well to traditional treatments. For example, cannabis has been investigated for its potential to alleviate symptoms of PTSD in veterans and survivors of trauma. Some individuals with chronic pain or insomnia also report improvements in mood and overall well-being when using cannabis as part of their treatment regimen. Cannabis addiction is a topic that is frequently discussed, yet remains somewhat misunderstood. While cannabis is often perceived as a less addictive substance compared to drugs like alcohol or opioids, research has shown that it is still possible to develop a dependence on cannabis, especially with long-term or heavy use. Cannabis use disorder, CUD, refers to a pattern of cannabis use that leads to significant impairment or distress, and it is characterized by symptoms such as cravings, tolerance, withdrawal, and difficulty controlling usage. One of the key factors that can contribute to the development of cannabis dependence is the presence of THC, the primary psychoactive compound in cannabis. Over time, individuals who use cannabis regularly may develop a tolerance to THC, meaning that they need to consume more of the substance to achieve the desired effects. This can lead to a cycle of increasing consumption and, in some cases, dependence. It is important to note that not everyone who uses cannabis will develop an addiction. The risk of addiction varies depending on several factors, including genetics, frequency of use, and mental health status. Studies have shown that individuals who start using cannabis at a young age or who have a family history of substance use disorders are more likely to develop cannabis use disorder. Additionally, those who use cannabis to self-medicate for underlying mental health issues may be at a higher risk of developing a dependency. For individuals who experience cannabis dependence or addiction, treatment options are available. Behavioral therapies, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can help individuals address the underlying psychological factors contributing to their cannabis use. In some cases, medical interventions, such as medications or detox programs, may be necessary to help individuals manage withdrawal symptoms and reduce their reliance on cannabis. The legal status of cannabis varies significantly across the globe. In some countries, cannabis is fully legal for both medicinal and recreational use, while in others, it remains strictly prohibited. The regulatory frameworks governing cannabis use often include restrictions on its sale, distribution, and consumption. As cannabis continues to gain acceptance, particularly in the context of medical use, many countries have enacted laws to regulate its production, sale, and consumption. In the United States, for example, cannabis remains illegal at the federal level, but many states have passed laws that allow for the medical or recreational use of cannabis. This patchwork of state laws has created a complex legal landscape, with varying regulations governing the cultivation, sale, and use of cannabis products. Some states, like California and Colorado, have fully legalized cannabis for both medicinal and recreational use, while others, like Texas and Idaho, maintain strict prohibitions. Similarly, in Canada, cannabis was fully legalized for both medical and recreational use in 2018, making it one of the first G7 countries to do so. The Canadian government regulates cannabis production, sale, and consumption through a strict framework that includes age restrictions, licensing requirements, and quality control measures. Other countries, such as Uruguay and certain parts of Europe, have also enacted laws that allow for the regulated use of cannabis. As cannabis laws continue to evolve, there is ongoing debate about the impact of legalization on public health, crime rates, and social outcomes. Proponents argue that legalizing cannabis can reduce the burden on the criminal justice system, generate tax revenue, and provide access to safer, regulated products for medical use. Opponents, however, caution that legalization could lead to increased use, particularly among adolescents, and may exacerbate certain public health issues. While much of the focus on cannabis tends to be on its effects on mental health, it is also important to consider how cannabis affects physical health. The impact of cannabis on physical health can vary depending on the method of consumption, the frequency of use, and the specific components of the cannabis being consumed. One of the most well-known concerns related to cannabis use is the impact of smoking. Like tobacco, smoking cannabis can damage the lungs and lead to respiratory issues. Research has shown that smoking cannabis can cause inflammation of the airways, bronchitis, and other respiratory conditions. Some studies suggest that long-term cannabis smoking may increase the risk of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and other lung diseases, although the link between cannabis smoking and lung cancer remains less clear. However, not all forms of cannabis consumption carry the same risks. Alternatives to smoking, such as vaping, edibles, and oils, may pose less risk to lung health. Vaping has become a popular alternative to smoking, though there have been concerns about the safety of certain vape products. It is essential for consumers to be cautious about the sources and quality of cannabis products they use, especially with the growing popularity of unregulated vaping devices. Cannabis use has also been linked to potential cardiovascular effects. THC can cause an increase in heart rate and blood pressure, which can be risky for individuals with pre-existing heart conditions. While most people may not experience significant cardiovascular issues from occasional cannabis use, individuals with heart disease or high blood pressure should approach cannabis use with caution. Some research has suggested that regular cannabis use may increase the risk of heart attack, especially in those with underlying cardiovascular conditions. On the other hand, some cannabinoids, such as CBD, have been shown to have cardiovascular benefits. Research suggests that CBD may have vasodilatory effects, helping to relax blood vessels and improve blood flow. It may also have anti-inflammatory properties that could benefit heart health by reducing the risk of atherosclerosis, plaque buildup in the arteries. While more research is needed to fully understand the effects of cannabis on cardiovascular health, it is clear that cannabis's impact on physical health is complex and varies depending on how it is consumed. Cannabis is a complex substance with a range of potential effects on the body and mind. It has both advantages and disadvantages, and its impact can vary depending on factors such as the individual's health, the method of consumption, and the type of cannabis used. From a medical standpoint, cannabis offers potential benefits for managing chronic pain, alleviating nausea, reducing anxiety, and promoting sleep. However, these benefits must be weighed against the risks of dependency, cognitive impairment, and potential mental health issues, particularly for those who use cannabis frequently or at a young age. As research into cannabis continues, it is likely that our understanding of its effects will continue to evolve. While cannabis is not a cure-all and may not be suitable for everyone, It is clear that it has therapeutic potential that warrants further exploration. Legalization and regulation are also important factors that influence how cannabis is used and understood, and continued research will play a crucial role in shaping public policy and medical guidelines. Ultimately, whether or not cannabis is a suitable option for an individual depends on their specific health needs, personal preferences, and the legal context in their area. Like any substance, it should be used responsibly, with consideration for both the benefits and the risks.